become traditional at Ball State Teachers College to have a brief dedication ceremony for each one of our new buildings. This is what we are met for this afternoon. The process entails the presentation of a key by a member of the State Teachers College Board to the President. The President then presents it, if you're reading your program, to the head of the department, who accepts it, and then we have statements of appreciation from members of the department or the different divisions of the building and from a student. As preliminary to this presentation, I should like to present to you the member of the State Teachers College Board who, of course, is involved in the total process but doesn't have the responsibility for making any speech this afternoon. That's Mrs. Roach, who's a member of our group. Mrs. Roach. And then, of course, the architects for the building, Walter Scholler and Sons. Walter Scholler Jr. is here as a representative of the architects. Mr. Scholler. We regret that, at least so far as we know, the representative of the builders, the Wermouth Construction Company from Fort Wayne, have not arrived. Or if they are you here, sir? Would you like to come up and join us so people can look at you from here? Good. This will give you a very dramatic entrance, sir. Represents the Wermouth Construction Company. I think you are always interested in the fact that this building was provided by tax dollars from the state of Indiana, appropriated through the legislature, and involved the expenditure of approximately $1 million. When you visit the building following the session, which is traditional with us, you will want to see the various features. This building, of course, has been constructed for the purpose of doing a whole series of things, including a general education in the area of composition, writing, creative writing, literature. Of course, special work which will be added later in some of the other special fields, such as the journalism, the TV, the radio. These will all come in the next unit. So we talk about this building as being the first unit of the English building. But in it we also have, when you study it and visit it, the area in which we have worked with special speech and hearing programs for children and for folks who are in college. You will want to visit these rooms. You will want to see some of the special qualities of the building in terms of the fact that the corridors are all arranged in such ways that we do not have paint and plaster to redo every so often. You'll notice that it's all the other kind of structure which remains continuously without new repair and new painting. You will want to look for the acoustical treatments in the buildings, in various part of it. Some of the rooms even to the place where we hope to do certain kinds of research in them. I'm sure we will want to step into some of the classrooms and see some white blackboards, about which you may wish to ask some questions, because they are used for a special kind of work in the treatment of writing and composition. Now, without any further introduction, description of the building, we shall proceed with the ceremony which we call the dedication of the building. Mr. Bracken, who is the president of the State Teachers College Board, will make the first presentation. I shall accept the key, then I shall hand it to Dr. Paul Royalty, and then we will have the 3 statements of appreciation. This is symbolic and traditional.
Well, I'm very happy to accept, on behalf of State Teachers College Board, the new English building, symbolized by this key. The building, which has been so well designed by Mr. Scholler, Walter Scholler and Associates, and from the builder who has made those plans a reality. And now it is my privilege to turn this key over to you, Dr. Emmons, as representing the faculty and students of Ball State Teachers College. The building to be used by you and the students for so long as it shall stand.
Thank you, Mr. Bracken. I've prepared a long and I hope interesting speech, most of which I shan't give, but I do think it's quite appropriate to say at this time that we are very proud to be able to accept this building, but we are also proud of the people who have, over a long period of time, been getting ready to use this building, because they have been involved in the planning. This, again, is quite traditional and quite in keeping with the way we like to have things done on this campus. The people who are going to live in the building and are going to work in it over a period of years have spent many, many hours, and we're very grateful to them. And of course, consequently, this building expresses for them and for all of us the kind of building that they would like to have in 1959. We talk frequently about, of course, about the fact that some unit of the college or some department or some area gets at the top of the totem pole about every so often. The English people are at the top of the totem pole this year. From now on, other people, as this building gets older and older, and 25 years from now is an old unit, then other people will be envied by them because they will have the latest building and the most up-to-date offices and the finest classrooms. We're proud of the English people for several reasons, not only because they worked on this building, but this English department and the people in it and the folks who are in the English and the speech and the whole gamut of this English process have worked very diligently in a series of very important projects on the campus. They have been involved in attempting to change many of the kinds of things that we do in this building. It's so easy to say that the explosion of knowledge has created real problems, and one of the areas in which we seem to have the greatest disparity between what high school folks and elementary and high school and junior high school folks say about English and what college folks say about English. This is a very real problem with us. And of course it grows partially out of the fact that we don't see and hear and speak in 1959 as we did 50 years ago. We speak around the world, when 50 years ago you could speak as far as a man could shout. We hear from satellites that are out in space 300,000 miles. And then we could hear and get messages from someone who could speak to us across a room, or if you're outside of the room, as far as one could shout. These have created new problems in communication. And these people in our group have been working on these problems. They have changed the names of the courses. They've changed the content of the courses. And for these things we are proud. Some of these people have helped individuals who might never be able to read or to work or to speak effectively to do some of these things. Well, I could go on. We're proud of these achievements. We're also proud of the fact that because of some of their achievements, the Lilly Foundation this year granted us a grant of $24,000 so that we can work with secondary school teachers of English, and that our faculty on the college campus can be involved in this process of attempting to bring closer together the answers to the question of what can we do best for the most of the folks who are going through school so that we can sooner or later get to the place where we agree on what should be contained in the knowledge and in the skill of a person who is to be recognized as a leader in our school teaching programs and in our non-teaching programs. I should put that in a positive sense, but I won't. So I say today, we are extremely happy to accept this building because of the kinds of things that it can mean to so many people. And Dr. Royalty, to you as head of the English department, I present this key, which again is symbolic of the opportunity and the challenge that is yours and for the members of your department.
Thank you, President Emmons. On behalf of the staff that is delighted with the new building, I'm very grateful to everyone who has helped us to build it and to prepare it, and now to dedicate it. I speak my thanks.
Mr. Bracken, Mrs. Roach, President Emmons, Dr. Royalty, members of the English Department, and friends of the college. I'm very grateful that I have the honor of representing my colleagues in the Department of English upon the occasion of the dedication of our new building. We appreciate fully the fine facilities which the people of the state have provided. Our present structure, to be shortly augmented by the addition to the north, will adequately house for many years the activities with which we are prepared to direct. These we conceive to be concerned with the nurture of the spirit. Our task is one of guiding the young as they pass by into the study and interpretation of the great works of literary art and into an examination and appreciation of those prose works, poems, and dramas which have established their own worth through the centuries. The best that has been thought and said in the world. And perhaps such written records of man's struggles are the best revealed records of human history. And such a service is most timely. The press, the airwaves, and the platform are constantly calling upon us to consider urgently the need for the deepening of the spiritual insights of our people. Let us consider just a few of these statements. Gerald Johnson, in a recent article, calls our attention to the necessity of studying inner space as well as outer to find out what man is and what he might be, and to narrow that gap. He says the most lucid statement of all of this that he has found comes from an American mathematician who writes, "The sovereign impulse of man is to find the answer to this question: what abides?" And the one agency which seems to be best devised in America to answer that question, or to train those who might find the answer, is education. Religious, perhaps, but certainly humane in the literary sense of that word, because our field deals with the finer qualities of human life. Assuredly, there is a relation, he continues, between the forces that move Socrates to accept the hemlock, Christ Golgotha, and millions of people in our own time to accept duty in preference to life when the call comes. The psalmist once said, "What is man that thou art mindful of him?" The writer says, "I believe that the whole purpose of study in the humanities is to seek the answer to that question. That it's one of the most challenging subjects of our day is to find out how we can claim dominion over inner space as well as outer." So, he concludes, ultimately, this thing will be triggered not by radioactivity, the forces of terror, despair, hatred, but by the forces which run counter to that of courage, hope, and love. Therefore, the business of the school is to investigate the forces in the modern education which analyze how people become great. Or again, the president of Yale, who said in a recent article, "Great art depends upon great patronage of art, and that depends upon high standards and the good taste and criticism of those who observe it. Great art demands greatness of the observer or the reader or the listener. And to understand Bach or Da Vinci or Shakespeare, we must rise to their level." And finally, Mark Van Doren has just said in this last week in an article, "The challenge to education is so immense that, in my opinion, I do not know how to state it except in general terms. This age of science we live in results in activities which give evidence to the fact that we do not know what we're doing, or why we're doing it, or whether we should. We have lost the sense of where the center is. Too seldom," he says, "we do not ask ourselves the really tough question of who we are, what we are, and what we should desire." And he concludes by saying, "Neither science nor the humanities can save the world alone. They have to work together." He says, in his judgment, that the business of science is to be interested in order, but the business of poetry is how to come to terms with disorder. So the two disciplines run side by side. If one needs to have proof that our field of activity nurtures the spirit, which is necessary in our day, listen to this little gem. If radio's slim fingers can pluck a melody from night and toss it over a continent or sea, if pedaled white notes of a violin are blown across a mountain or a city's din, if songs like Crimson Roses are culled from the thin blue air, why should mortals wonder if God hears prayer? Sometimes across the fields of yesterday, he sometimes comes to me, a little lad with face aglow, the lad I used to be, and yet he smiles so wistfully once he has crept within. I wonder he still hopes to see the man I might have been. One man who gave a building to his alma mater over in Ohio said this after he had suffered in the financial reverses of his generation: "What I saved, I lost. What I spent, I had. What I gave, I have." So we, in accepting this building and expressing our appreciation for it, pledge our best efforts to be consecrated in the service of youth, to deepen their knowledge, to cultivate their spiritual insights, and in so doing, nurture the hope that they will hold close Shakespeare's advice: "This above all, to thine own best self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man."
Mrs. Roach, gentlemen, friends, at the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there are two great rivers that come together, the Allegheny and the Monongahela. And they call this coming together confluence. At a school such as ours, I think three great rivers must come together. Dr. Royalday, a short time ago, discussed two of them: the confluence of the heart and the mind. Dr. Royalday said that a book is a storehouse of the experiences of the heart and the mind. Today, I think we're putting a third river in with our other two, that of physical resources. And of course, the stream then becomes our own school, or Ball State. Some of you may know that Dr. Van Cleve is writing a history of Ball State. And I think it would be amiss if he should omit any one of those three streams: the heart, the mind, or the physical resources. It's easy to see buildings. It is easy to see books. But I would like to remind you this afternoon that there is something beyond books and physical resources that makes up a college. That there is a sense of excitement that goes with a new building, that you can't see, but you certainly can feel. And I think Ball State, in my experience here, has been one of the most exciting places that I have ever been. If nothing more than just growth being exciting. And I think this is probably the heart of other people in the past, the way they acted to me and to you. And I'm thinking of two or three individuals, and I can mention one or two whom I thought had great heart. One of them was mentioned this morning, or this afternoon earlier, that of Dean Neuer, of W.E. Wagoner, who has had his great influence in the past, with great heart. I think the present people have shown excitement all around me. The people I've talked with up here on the stage and the ones who have been with me recently in the past few weeks who are here in the audience. I think the people of the future will miss the thing that we've been going through in this heart idea, this sense of excitement. They will come in and accept this new area or new building as I think I came in and accepted this arts building. And if some of you were here at this time when the arts building was built, I'm certain you felt this feeling of excited heart. The thing that is very hard to recapture, something that is fleeting and transitory, yet is just as important as bricks and mortar. The other, that of the mind, is eternal with us. That is our business, the thing that Dr. Van Cleve has just visited with you about. It's the thing that Dr. Royalty was emphasizing. And we're proud of our business. It is my position to respond for those people who are in the area of the arts of speech and the speech sciences that are in this new building, and we look forward to the new areas of the theater, the television, and the journalism areas, the very excitement that will come from that where we can exercise the development of the mind. The love of the good and the beautiful is all around us. Literature, interpretation, and theater. Helping people to think straight and then talk straight. Our work in public speaking and discussion. The essence of democracy is inherent here. The realization of mass communication in our present-day life and the way it can be used effectively and democratically is with us in our radio and TV and journalism. And yet, all around us, as Dr. Emmons mentioned a while ago, are those people who cannot even be adequate. And it is our job to help those people get as close to adequacy in communication as is possible. Inherent in all of this is research. And whether or not you are able to see those places, but planned within our building is a determined desire to change for the better the concept of education at Ball State, and that is do as much as we can to add research as one of our emphases. Let me turn to the third stream, and that of physical resources. I believe that this unit, which has been passed on to us to have and to hold, probably adds to one of the finest teacher preparation schools and programs in this particular department of any place in the country. I'm personally very proud of the staff that we have and the contributions that they are making. Since we've been in the new building alone, one book has come out of our ground floor. I know of 4 articles. I know of 2 doctoral dissertations being finished, and I think this building served to hurry it up. I'm certain that it will be a productive place in which to work. I state publicly that I think we should recognize and realize our good fortune. Good fortune in being part of the United States and being a part of Ball State. I think that this confluence that is present on our campus, the mind, the heart, and the present and wonderful physical resources that have been made available to us will make us even a greater leader. I think that we must continually realize the eternal issues and not be tied by minor items, the eternal issues of the world and mankind. I think we must recognize that we are looked upon as leaders, not only as citizens of our country, but as citizens of Ball State. I think that we must finally realize that we must help others throughout the world to reach our standard of living that is present and obvious in this new building of ours. So I say to the citizens of Indiana, represented here, but going about their business in Aurora and Madison and New Albany and Evansville and Tell City, and I say to those people in Jennings County and Kosciuszko County and Pulaski County and Sullivan County, to the people from Portland and Mount Pleasant Township and Marion and Kokomo, to Sullivan, South Bend, East Chicago and Elkhart, to Muncie, Anderson, Indianapolis, to all those people of Indiana, I think the 21st Psalm tells what I want to say.
that thou hast given him his heart's desire, and hast not withholden the request of his lips.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. I consider it an honor to represent the student body of Ball State Teachers College in these proceedings. I have, however, been somewhat at a loss these past weeks to decide how I might best and most briefly voice the appreciation of so large a group. I thought at last that perhaps a few words concerning understanding and communication might be somehow appropriate to the moment. After all, who suffers more from the breakdown of understanding and communication than students and teachers? Then, too, this beautiful building that we speak of this morning, or this afternoon, has been constructed certainly as a tool of a sort. A tool which makes it more easy for us to surmount the barriers which make it so difficult for men to understand each other. And so, what of understanding and communication this afternoon? Perhaps the most powerful personality I have ever encountered in my life is that of the principal of the grade school I attended as a child. He stands less than 5 feet tall, and yet I remember him as a veritable giant of energy, determination, and understanding. He said to me once, "Bob, there are 2 things that you must remember in this life. First of all, it's your measure from the collar button up that determines your stature. So you better learn to think, you better learn to understand people. And secondly, once you begin to understand, you had better communicate that understanding. In this respect, all our lives, all of us are students and teachers." And to be sure, daily life with its multiple frustrations, for me at least, has proven again and again the wisdom of these words. How important it seems to learn to understand the staggering problems which keep our world in such an utter turmoil. And once we somehow manage to grasp some small understanding of these complexities, how important, how very important indeed that we communicate this understanding. If I couldn't believe that universal understanding and communication were possible and necessary, I couldn't find it in my heart to study another moment. Nor could you, any of you, I believe, lacking this belief, continue long to be educators. So it must be comforting after a long year and quarter perhaps, filled with the frustrations, the failings, the aggravations of the classroom, to find that you, the teachers, and we, the students, share, after all, this small shred of common ground. We both believe communication and understanding important, possible, very necessary. This belief is the ideal for which we strive. I somehow feel rather naive speaking in terms of ideals as young as I am. But I remember my grandmother, who died at the age of 85, and she was a school teacher for almost a third of her lifetime. And to the very end, she maintained an active, solid mind and an indestructible optimism. And she said to me one day, "Don't be confused with terminology, Bob. It's always practical to set up an ideal and strive for it." Well, the building we speak about this afternoon somehow symbolizes for me that belief in communication and understanding, a greater understanding of the culture that literature reflects. And if we gain nothing else, perhaps, we gain from our attempts at study some tiny insight into the complex business of communication, of understanding, of sympathizing. And for this, we're much enriched, and our time has been well spent. And when communication breaks down, and perhaps we flunk an examination or something of that sort, or something even more important, then we're encouraged by the idealistic literature professor who paraphrases Auden with the words, "Don't be discouraged. Nothing succeeds like failure." E.E. Cummings tells us in his poem Plato told him that it takes a nipponized piece of the old Fifth Avenue L in the top of the head to communicate ethical precepts to mankind. And we, the students, ask, why must common sense statement be punctuated with a blow on the head? And it's a good question. There must be a better way to communicate, to understand. Well, perhaps we, the students, will discover this better way to communicate if we put this beautiful new English building to the use for which it was intended. Certainly, this building offers us a wonderful opportunity to learn, to grow to understand, and to learn to communicate that understanding. Therefore, in behalf of the student body of Ball State Teachers College, I take this occasion to thank all those who made this building possible and this opportunity possible that we might study. For this beautiful building, with its spacious, comfortable, practical facilities, we thank you most heartily. And furthermore, in closing, we, the students, accept the responsibility that this opportunity implies. Thank you.